You can't just eat food and then magically gain muscle without incorporating strength training into your routine. So if somebody gains weight and they're not strength training, how the hell did they gain muscle? Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in and welcome back to another Sunday Q&A. Today's question is with regard to calories. Specifically, should you track calories while on the carnivore diet? Well, before I start, you guys know the drill. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, ding, ding, ding. And if you don't want to watch the entire video, I will be including timestamps in the description so you can skip ahead to the section that you want. Now, onto the question. Earlier this week, I got a question on one of my carnivore videos, and it had to do with calories. The question comes from the True J20. I'm not sure if your name is Jay or if you're from Toronto and that's a play on the Blue Jays, but Jay asks, do you still track calories on this diet? I've read that you shouldn't track for the first 30 days or so. I do understand it's still calories in versus calories out at the end of the day. That's one important thing that Jay got to, I think his name is Jay, in that post, and that was, yes, calories still do matter, and whether or not you should track your calories really comes down to what your goal is. If your main objective is to lose weight, then yes, you should absolutely track calories. However, if your main objective is either optimizing your health or optimizing your performance, then I wouldn't recommend tracking calories because it's not going to be beneficial if it's not directly tied to your goal of improving your health or improving your performance. But if your goal is to lose weight, then yes, you need to track your calories because at the end of the day, weight loss is going to come down to calories in versus calories out. For those of you who are new to my channel, I've already gone over this several times, but I'm going to quickly reiterate it one more time. That way you guys know exactly what is involved in losing weight. When it comes down to losing weight, 3,500 calories is going to be equivalent to roughly 1 pound of fat. So if you are in a caloric deficit of 3,500 calories over the course of a week, that is going to equate to 1 pound of fat loss per week. Now, how would this look in a practical setting? Well, let's say you do a caloric deficit of 500 calories per day. Well, 500 times 7 is going to be equal to 3,500. So if you are in a caloric deficit of 500 calories per day, that is going to equate to 3,500 calorie deficit over the course of a week, which is going to equate to 1 pound of fat loss per week. So if it is your main objective to lose weight, that is the number one thing that you want to accomplish, then yes, you should track your calories, because if you're not tracking your calories, then how are you going to know if you're in a caloric deficit and if you're a caloric surplus? Because if you are in a caloric surplus, you are going to gain weight. Now, if you are really, really heavy, let's say you are morbidly obese, you're 500-600 pounds, at that weight, you don't really need to track your calories on the carnivore diet because it's going to be pretty tough to get into a caloric surplus unless you're eating really, really fatty meats and you are just consuming a ton of food throughout the day. But generally speaking, if you are 500-600 pounds and you're morbidly obese, then you don't really need to track your calories because your level of requirement in terms of how many calories you will need throughout the day is going to already be pretty high. So because your caloric requirements are pretty high, you'll be able to go on a 3, maybe even 4,000 calorie diet and still be able to lose weight. If you are pretty lean already and you just want to lose some fat and you're already close to your goal, then you definitely need to start tracking your calories, because the closer you get to your goal, the more difficult it's going to be when it comes to determining how many calories you need. Because if you are just going based off of intuitive eating, which is what I like to do and what I preach to my clients, that's great if your objective is optimizing health or performance. But if your main objective is to lose weight, that's not going to be the most effective, because you need to know exactly how many calories you're putting into your body to know how much weight you are going to lose. Now, one of the things that I absolutely hate when it comes to the carnivore community, and not only the carnivore community, but this also applies to the vegan community, the keto community, is a lot of people have this misconception and they will reiterate this point that, oh, you cannot gain weight on this diet. If you follow this diet, you're guaranteed to lose weight. You don't have to worry about tracking calories. You could just eat whatever you want. And that is complete BS. It doesn't matter what diet you follow. It doesn't matter if you are doing carnivore, keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean, a gallon of milk a day diet, the Pop-Tart diet where you only eat Pop-Tarts. Doesn't matter what diet you are on. If you are in a caloric deficit, you are going to lose weight. If you are in a caloric surplus, you are going to gain weight. There are no ways around that. So whenever people say you can follow this diet, you don't have to worry about counting calories, well, if you are telling that to somebody who is trying to optimize their health or performance, fine. If you're telling that to somebody who is trying to lose weight, then no, that's bullshit. Because you cannot just eat whatever you want. You still have to track your calories if you want to lose weight. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there is this Facebook group and it is called the World Carnivore Tribe. And a few weeks ago, I had read this post and somebody had stated just that point, and it annoyed the hell out of me because every time somebody says this, it just misleads people. And what happens is people are going to take that advice, they are going to overeat, they're not going to see the results that they want, then they're going to blame the diet for their weight gain, and then they will fall off of it and go back into their old habits, and a lot of times they'll just quit altogether. And the reason that they quit is because they were fed this misinformation. Whereas if they were told accurate information, they would have seen the results, they would have stuck to the plan, and they would have achieved their goal. I'm going to quickly just read the post that I saw a few weeks ago. So this was in World Carnivore Tribe, and somebody had said, so in regards to fat loss, anyone have a solid argument as to why carnivore is an exception to this? And there's an infographic, I'll include a picture right over here, but the infographic, there's a bunch of diets on the left, and it says name, it has the name of the diets. On the right, it says how it works, and it's carnivore, calorie deficit, ketogenic, calorie deficit, intermittent fasting, calorie deficit, and it goes on for each of those different diets. And with the way that this question was posed in regard to fat loss, anyone have a solid argument as to why carnivore is an exception to this? Well, it's not an exception to this. You cannot break the laws of thermogenesis just because you are following a carnivore diet. If you are following a carnivore diet, it's still going to come down to calories in versus calories out. You could not bypass that, doesn't matter how much you try. If you are in a caloric deficit, you will lose weight. If you are in a caloric surplus, you will gain weight. And it doesn't matter if you are carnivore, vegan, anything in between. You need to follow that principle if you want to see results. Now, on that post, there were several comments, and some of the comments just drove me absolutely nuts because there's a lot of misinformation in the comment section as well. There was somebody, and they ended up writing this response in the comment section. The main difference that matters real world is that if you gain weight on carnivore, it's mostly muscle. If you gain weight on carbs, it's mostly fat. Weight loss is the same. If you lose weight on carnivore, you lose mostly fat. And if you lose weight on carbs, it's mostly muscle. So don't look only at the scale. Look at the mirror. Look the holes on your belt. That's what matters. Lose fat and more muscle. Low fat and more muscle. No, that is absolutely not what happens. You cannot just go on a carnivore diet, gain weight, and it's going to be mostly muscle, and then you go on a carbohydrate-rich diet, and most of the weight that you put on is going to be either fat, or if you lose weight, you're going to be losing muscle. No, that does not work whatsoever. And I can prove it several ways. But before I even prove it, I just want to use a little bit of common sense for you guys. So as this post said, well, if you gain weight on carnivore, you're gaining mostly muscle. Okay, well, what if the person who has gained the weight is not doing strength training? What if they're not doing any training whatsoever? You can't just eat food and then magically gain muscle without incorporating strength training into your routine. So if somebody gains weight and they're not strength training, how the hell did they gain muscle? Now, same thing with the carb. Let's say somebody is doing very vigorous strength training and they lose weight. How did they lose muscle? If they are doing proper exercise, if they're training for hypertrophy, relative strength, any of that type of stuff, how do you know that they lost muscle? If they're getting stronger and they're getting leaner, how are they losing muscle? They didn't lose muscle. If they lost weight and they are visibly leaner, then they lost fat. If they gained weight and they are visibly less leaner, then they gained fat. They did not gain muscle. Now back to my proof. I'm going to show you some proof right now. And that is going to be myself. I'm going to use myself for proof. This is me right over here when I was 149.8 pounds. Now, when I was 149.8 pounds, in this picture I was roughly 6 to 8% body fat. And that equates to 137.8 to 139.2 pounds of lean mass. The other 9 to 12 pounds is going to be fat mass. Now, in this picture over here, I was following the carnivore diet. Now, I'm going to show you another picture. This picture right over here, I was also following the carnivore diet. And in this picture over here, that was roughly 6 months after that picture was taken beforehand. The first picture, I had taken that, and about 2 weeks later, I had gotten my weight up to 152. So in this first picture over here, where you see that I'm 149.8 pounds, well, 2 weeks later, I had gained about 2 pounds, and that was me at 152 pounds. And that is when I decided that I wanted to try doing a carnivore bulk. Now, one of the things when it comes to bulking is I am not a proponent of bulking. I don't believe it's something that you should do, and that's something that I preach to all my clients that want to gain muscle. I don't think it makes sense to do a bulk. The reason that I did this bulk was because I had never done a bulk on carnivore, and I was just curious how exactly it would feel. And another one of the reasons why I did it was I was a little bit self-conscious. When I dropped down below 150 pounds, even though I was completely shredded underneath my clothes, I wasn't happy with how I looked inside of my clothes. So whenever I had a shirt on, I looked really, really small, and it looked like I didn't even work out. So I wanted to put on some size, that way when I had my shirt on, I would feel more confident with my shirt on. And I didn't really care about putting on fat because I was expecting that I was going to put on a decent amount of fat. So in this picture right over here, that was the end of my 4-week bulk. And in that picture, I was 174 pounds. So I ended up putting on 22 pounds in 4 weeks. Do you honestly think that in 4 weeks, putting on 22 pounds, that a majority of that was muscle? No, I can tell you from looking at that, just using my eyeballs, that a lot of that was going to be fat. I would say roughly 60 to 70% of the weight that I gained was water. The other 25 to 35 was going to be fat. Maybe 5% of the weight that I gained was muscle. And that's being incredibly generous. If I'm being realistic, probably 2 to 3% of the muscle, the weight that I gained was muscle. But at most, 5% of what I gained was muscle. So in this picture right over here, where I am 174 pounds, well, in that picture, I was roughly 20 to 22% body fat if I had to just go based off of my visuals and using my eyes. So at 20 to 22% body fat at 174, that equates to roughly 135.7 to 139.2 pounds of lean mass and 34.8 to 38.3 pounds of fat mass. So if we take a look at the two pictures by comparison, in the first picture at 149.8, from there to the second picture at 174, I roughly increased my body fat percentage on the low end 12%, on the high end by 16%, because if we assume the higher end at 8% and the lower end of the second picture at 20%, then that is going to be a 12% increase in body fat. If we assume the lower end of 6% in this first picture over here and the higher end of 22% in this picture over here, then that is going to equate to a 16% increase in body fat. So clearly, I did not put on mostly muscle between the two different pictures. I put on mostly fat, and that is exactly what I expected when I did the bulk. And if we use those same measurements, let's take a look at how much fat I gained in that over the course of that period. Well, in the first picture, I had roughly 9 to 12 pounds of fat on my frame. In the second picture, I had roughly 34.8 to 38.3 pounds of fat on my frame. So if we were to compare the first to the second picture, on the low end, I gained 22.8 pounds of fat. On the high end, I gained 29.3 pounds of fat over the course of 4 weeks. Now, some of you may think, well, how the hell did you manage to gain 22.8 to 29.3 pounds of fat over the course of 4 weeks? It might seem impossible to some of you guys. Well, it was actually quite simple. When I was doing the carnivore diet before I attempted the bulk, I was only consuming roughly 1,600 to 2,300 calories per day. And in terms of the food that I was consuming, it equated to roughly 1.5 pounds of meat, plus I would have an 8-egg salad before and after my workout. So because of that 8-egg salad, I would add in a 1/4 cup of ghee. So it was 1.5 pounds of meat, 8 eggs, a 1/4 cup of ghee, which equated to anywhere from 1,600 to 2,300 calories throughout the day over the course of that. That's how I managed to achieve this look over here at 6 to 8% body fat, by being on a pretty low calorie diet and not eating quite as much. In the second picture, right over here, where you can clearly see that I'm not as lean and I put on way more fat than I did muscle, well, what was I doing for that? For that, I was consuming roughly 4,614 calories, and instead of 1.5 pounds of food, I was consuming 3 pounds of food, and on top of the 3 pounds of food, I was still consuming the 8-egg salad with a 1/4 cup of ghee. So I was consuming over 4,600 calories, which is roughly 3,000 more than what I was doing on my original carnivore diet, where I was only eating 1,600. Plus, on top of the food that I was eating, I was also consuming a minimum of 1 gallon of water per day. 1 gallon of water per day, which is equivalent to 8.8 pounds. I was also consuming 1 cup of bone broth, which is 250 grams. So between the 3 pounds of food, the 1 gallon of water, and the 1 cup of bone broth that I was consuming every single day, that was the equivalent of 12 or more pounds of food and liquid that I was putting into my body every single day for 4 weeks. And one of the things with that is, for the first 2 weeks, it was pretty easy. The main reason that I did the bulk, I wanted to just see how easy it was compared to doing the traditional old school bodybuilding bulk. And for the first 2 weeks, it was pretty easy. I was eating all the food that I wanted. It was amazing. The last 2 weeks, it was a struggle. It was force feeding. It was all the stuff that I hated about bulking, which is why I'm not a proponent of bulking. It's all the things that I absolutely hate about it. But overall, it was pretty easy to achieve that, because when I was bulking on carbohydrates back 20 years ago, not quite 20 years ago, this would have been back in 2008, 2009, but back in 2008, 2009, To get from 150 pounds to 177 pounds, it took me months to achieve that. Whereas I was able to get from 152 to 174 on carnivore in 4 weeks. So you can absolutely gain a ton of weight and a ton of fat on carnivore if you are consuming more calories than you are burning. So don't be misled and think that you can just automatically build muscle and burn fat and that you're not going to put on any fat on carnivore. You can still put on fat, you can still lose muscle on carnivore. I could have somebody build a ton of muscle on a high carbohydrate diet if I strength train with them. I could have somebody lose a ton of muscle by putting them on carnivore if I just have them sit on the couch all day and not do any training whatsoever. You can build muscle on any diet, you can lose muscle on any diet, you can build fat on any diet, and you can lose fat on any diet. It doesn't matter what diet you are on. It comes down to calories in versus calories out. So if your main objective, your number one goal is to lose weight, then yes, you should track calories because it is going to equate to fat loss if you are in a caloric deficit. If your main objective is not to lose weight, let's say your main objective is optimizing your health or performance, then I would not recommend counting calories because it is not part of your goal. If your main goal is not to lose weight, then why bother counting? So those are just a few of the notes when it comes to fat loss. Now in terms of the diet and what I was following on here, I'm going to go into exactly what I was consuming. So when I was doing this picture over here where I was 149.8 pounds, I already stated that I was consuming about 1.5 pounds of food and anywhere from 1,600 to 23 calories. Whereas in this picture it was 3 pounds of food. And the 3 pounds of food, I was basically going through 2 pounds of medium ground beef every single day, which was the equivalent of roughly 2,304 calories. I would also go through 1 pound of beef liver, which had 612 calories. I would go through 8 large eggs, which had 572 calories. And then I would go through 125 grams of butter and ghee. I would put a 1/4 cup of ghee in the eggs, and I would fry up the liver and ground beef with a 1/4 cup of grass-fed butter. And that was 1,125 calories. So all of that, when you add it up, that was 4,614 calories over the course of those 4 weeks. So I ate that many calories every day for 4 weeks. Now, again, I was consuming 1,600 in this picture right over here. So in that picture, 1,600 calories, well, I consumed 3,000 calories more in this picture over here. And again, 3,500 calories is equal to 1 pound of fat loss per week. So 3,500 surplus would be equivalent to 1 pound of fat gained per week. So in this picture over here, because I'm consuming 3,000 calories more, that's going to be equivalent to almost 1 pound per day that I am gaining of fat. And if you look at the end of the month, so 4 weeks later, 28 days later, I put on 22 pounds, which is almost 1 pound a day. So because I put on almost 1 pound a day over the course of the 28 days, that means that clearly calories in versus calories out matter, even if you are following something like the carnivore diet. Just because you're following carnivore diet, it doesn't mean that you can break the laws of thermogenesis and consume whatever the hell you want. If you want to lose weight, you still need to be in a caloric deficit. And another thing, another comment that was on that particular thread, this is on the exact same thread about why do calories not matter in the World Carnivore Tribe. Another person had come out with this comment, and it says, calories aren't everything. Back before carnivore, when I was counting calories, I found a calorie level that allowed me to lose 0.5 pound a day like clockwork. But if I had a single can of Diet Coke that day, I would lose nothing. Same calories, I assumed the artificial sweetener was causing an insulin dump that prevented weight loss. Well, no, it wasn't the artificial sweetener, and you weren't getting an insulin dump. What happened was, if you are consuming the exact amount of calories, and then you are adding in a Diet Coke that has 0 calories on top of it, well, what exactly is in a 12-ounce can of Diet Coke? Well, that is 12 ounces of liquid that you are putting in your body on top of what you would normally put into your body. 12 ounces is 3/4 pounds. So I don't know if you're weighing yourself in the morning or if you're weighing yourself at night before you go to bed, but if you're weighing yourself at night and then you have a can of Coke and you drink it, that's going to make you 3/4 pound heavier. That's where your 0.5 pound of weight loss didn't happen because you added in 3/4 pound of liquid. So when you hop on the scale, you're going to be 3/4 pound heavier, which is going to negate the 0.5 pound that you lost. If you're weighing yourself first thing in the morning, let's say again, you're drinking that can of Coke the day before and you weigh yourself the morning after. Well, you put on 3/4 pound from the liquid from the Coke that you consumed, and then let's say you sweat out 1/4 pound of that Coke throughout the night. Well, Once you sweat out that quarter of a pound, you're still left with half a pound of liquid from that Coke in your stomach. So that half a pound is going to negate the half a pound that you would have lost. But you're not gaining half a pound of fat. That half a pound that you gained was the liquid that you put into your body. That was the 12-ounce can of Coke that you put into your body. You didn't just not lose fat, you added liquid to your body, and that is where that extra half a pound came from. It's not that the Coke was detrimental to your weight loss journey. The reason that you didn't lose weight was because you added more water. So because you added more liquid into your body, that is where that half a pound went. It's not that you gained fat. But anyway, that's pretty much it for this topic. I'm just going to quickly sum everything up again. Doesn't matter what diet you are following, it's going to come down to calories in versus calories out if your main objective is to lose weight. 3,500 calories is going to be equivalent to roughly 1 pound of fat. So if you want to lose 1 pound of fat, you need to be on a 3,500 calorie deficit over the course of however long you want to lose that. If you want to lose it over the course of a week, 500 calories a day times 7 days a week equals 3,500, which is going to be equivalent to 1 pound of fat loss per week. If you are in a dramatic calorie deficit, that is not going to be very sustainable. So if you are somebody who is trying to lose weight, if you are very, very heavy, let's say you're 500 or 600 pounds, you can get away with a 1,000, 1,500 calorie deficit because at 1,000 calorie deficit or 1,500 calorie deficit, it's going to be fairly easy if you are 500 or 600 pounds because you could probably get away with consuming 3,000 calories and still lose weight. However, once you get leaner and lighter and closer to your goal, you don't want to do a drastic calorie cut. You want to go slow and steady. So the closer you are to your goal and the leaner you are, the smaller the deficit should be. Ideally, let's say you are already a few weeks away from your goal, you just have a little bit of fat to lose, try a 250 calorie deficit. If you're at a 250 calorie deficit times 7 days a week, that is going to be equivalent to 1,750 calories, which is going to be equivalent to half a pound of fat loss per week, which is what the girl in that comment said. She said that she was losing half a pound of fat per week. Well, if she was doing that, that means she was on a 250 calorie deficit. And if she didn't lose weight, then she wasn't in a deficit. So if you want to lose weight, you need to be in a caloric deficit. If your main objective is not to lose weight and you're worried about optimizing your health or performance, don't worry about counting calories, but it's going to come down to each individual and your own personal preference. That's pretty much it for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to smash that like button so I know to make more of these types of videos in the future. And if you're either new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell as I will be uploading new videos every single day. If you have any other questions with regard to anything, nutrition, anatomy, supplements, physiology, go ahead, ask your questions down in the comment section. I'll either answer them during our next Sunday Q&A or I'll answer it directly in the comment section. But that's pretty much it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in and I will see you again tomorrow.